I'm going to click the wrong button. Again, welcome to the call, and this is a very exciting call for me. You know, as we led up to 2020, there was something within me. It was just a lot of excitement, and I really couldn't figure out. I mean, I'm always excited for a new year, but there was something just deep within me. I've shared a journey with several of you that are on this call about some things that happened in my life in 2019, and you know, just about feeling like I was in a fish in a small pond, and God's using me beyond that. So I was kind of thinking it was that. But as I looked more into the year 2020, I was actually preparing for a call, and it was the first call of the new year, and I wanted to add some meat to it a little bit, you know, and I started looking around. I realized why I was so excited about 2020. It's really a spiritual thing. It's a very exciting time. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. You know, it's not like God is just, you know, he's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, but he's got a time and a purpose for things, for everything under the sun. And so there is a significance here with the year 2020, and in fact, for the next decade, that I want to point out to you. And then we'll talk about how you might get there. But you know, we always have an enemy, don't we? Our adversary wants us to like turn our eyes inward. You know, he wants us to always focus on our pain, our past, our problems. And every time we turn around, it seems like that's what he's doing. He's turning things inward, you know. We're going to address that a lot in a little bit. But God has very different plans. He will absolutely use your past, use your pain, use your problems to glorify him no matter what, if you're a willing servant. So, you know, we got to first understand how that enemy works to turn everything inward. You know, we're using a whole lot of marketing these days, and I rightfully so. You know, when it turns 2020, we're using that 2020 vision thing. I'm doing it. Everybody's doing it, right? But we're going to turn to the Hebrew language. I'm no expert, by the way, but the Hebrew language, which is considered to be the language of heaven. And we're going to look at some answers for that in that whole 2020 thing. But the 2020 and the Hebrew language, of course, everything is numbers and symbols and letters and things all wrapped together for that language of heaven, right? But the number 2020, the year 2020, correlates to the Hebrew year 5,780. It's Hebrew numerology. And in that numerology, 5,780, it comes out to be the year of the mouth, or the decade of the mouth. It's like open your mouth wide if you really look at the true meaning of all the words used in the symbols. So, you know, it's interesting to look at. It's actually the last decade that was ended in the number 70, of course, was that was the time or the season of vision. And you know, if I had 100 people on this line or 1,000 people on this line, it wouldn't matter. And I asked you to really think long and hard about the decade you just left behind, you'd be seeing times of vision, lots of vision, you know, maybe clarity on your purpose, maybe clarity on your relationships, maybe clarity in terms of your business, maybe just, you know, what your life in general. But if you look at the last decade, that was the year of vision. We saw a lot of people come back to their faith. We've seen high profile people come out with their faith. Those were the years of vision. Ayin is the word that was used, to see. That was to see. Interesting that specifically the year 2019 was the year to see the snake. And the interpretation is almost like the crooked ways of this world. And boy, oh boy, did 2019 just get oppressive with all the stuff, all, you know, 2020 vision, no doubt about it. You know, when we looked at what's going on in life, how depraved is this generation? You know, we look at all those things, we're seeing a snake in the grass. But the number, again, 5,780, it begins, 2020 means pay, P-E-Y, or mouth, if you will. More specifically, again, it's open your mouth wide. It's not like just whisper, guys. It's open that mouth wide. So 5,780 will be the year to declare new foundations for what you saw in the last decade. So what we don't want to do is have that adversary turn our eyes inward and just focus on, oh, what am I going to see this year? What am I going to see next year? If you really ponder what you've already seen, now's the time to be speaking up. It's the year of the mouth, or the decade of the mouth, really. And here it is on a timeline. So you can see that from the years 2010 to 2019, the decade of C is where we gained our vision. We see 2019, and that's the snake in the grass. 2020 is the year of double portion. And now 2020 to 2029 is open your mouth wide. So let's talk about that double portion here. That's very exciting stuff. Again, the Hebrew letter calf represents the number 20. And calf is the palm. It's the word or symbol or correlation to the palm, an open hand. In Hebrew, it signifies giving freely with palms up, right? So you can see the transition over time of how the symbols have changed. And of course, the modern one is there on the right. When you look at that calf, it represents 20. So we have a double 20, right? We have two palms. Calf is the palm, the open, it's open hand. It signifies giving freely. And here we have two of them. It's not often, just a few times actually that we have read about double portions, but we read about blessings of the laying on of hands all the time. In Mark 10, he took them in his arms and began blessing them, laying his hands on them. All those who were sick with various diseases brought them to him, and laying his hands on each one of them, he was healing them. Listen, Jesus didn't need to touch anybody. We already know the woman who touched his cloak. We know with the centurion, he healed from afar. He didn't have to do that. It's symbolic of blessing, right? Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over. She couldn't straighten up at all. And Jesus called her forward, laid his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and began to glorify God. It's a time of that healing. Guys, listen, there's all kinds of meanings with everything in the Bible, right? But I think a whole lot of you have been stuck like that woman. You kind of been bent over. You can't straighten up. You don't know which way to go. Maybe it's been, pain and agony in your life. Maybe it's broken relationships. It's all kinds of stuff. But plenty of you have been spending those years in brokenness. Guys, somebody's needs to mute themselves out. I'm going to pause right there and let you do it. Thank you. So I think a lot of you might be suffering with that. Maybe your vision, when you look back to the last decade, you can see things that have kept you down, kept you from going where God wants you to go, in other words. But it's symbolic anyway, the laying on of hands of that healing. Then they began laying their hands on them, and they were receiving the Holy Spirit. We see that as we see the Spirit. Do not neglect the spiritual gift within you, which was bestowed on you through prophetic utterance with the laying on of hands. And then when the apostles had fasted and prayed and laid their hands on them, ordaining and commissioning them, they sent them on their way. You cannot ignore from the word of God, from the language of heaven, the significance of it being a double portion time. Guys, it's two hands, okay? So we got a lot of blessings, a lot of portions, the double portion. It's a special anointing on this season of life. Particularly 2020 is that year of the double portion, and the rest of it kind of flows with the opening our mouth wide that we're going to talk about it. But it's a special season. You don't want to miss it. Okay, you don't want to overlook the significance. You don't want to, stay in status quo, and you certainly don't want to be bent over like that woman. It's a time to plant the seeds, the words, the message in your life, in your faith, and in your business. Frankly, I think they're all one, right? But it's a time to be planting seeds. Open your mouth wide and to be, planting the seeds that we should be planting. Double portion is only mentioned 6 times in the Bible. The double portion year of 2020. Again, we remember, or most of you know the story of Elijah and Elijah, right? Elijah was basically the protege of Elijah. And he said, Elijah said to him, tell me, what can I do for you before I'm taken from you? He just wanted to bless him, right? And Elijah says, let me inherit a double portion of your spirit. Wow, when we look at what Elijah did, the power of that man, how God used him. It was a bold thing for Elijah to say, give me two times that, right? And Elijah said, that's pretty bold. But if you see me swept up, and of course only 2 people have avoided death like that. It was Elijah and Enoch. But Elijah performed, if you look at their lives, he performed several miracles in his lifetime, and Elisha performed 14. He asked for that double portion, and he got it. We see it again, the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he prayed for his friends, and the Lord increased all that Job had twofold, or a double portion. A lot of times we hear the argument, well, that's not really true. He didn't get double the amount of kids. Well, he didn't need double the amount of kids. His kids were in heaven. He didn't lose them. They were, relocated at different addresses, Billy Graham would say, right? He didn't lose them, so he did get the same number of children here on earth, and of course, a double portion of everything else. But to Hannah, he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had closed her womb. We only read about it 6 times in the Bible. It's a very big deal, right? And I'm going to just kind of go to the last paragraph here. Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion. And instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. And so you will inherit a double portion in your land, and everlasting joy will be yours. That's the only place where we see double portion actually mentioned twice in the same scripture. Double portion time is a very big deal. I mean, 6 times in the entire Bible. And here we are, as we look to the Hebrew, the language of heaven, here we are again in a season of double portion. You cannot afford to ignore. So it's double portion time. And the question is, what will you do with the season? Will you embrace it? Will you actually go do your own research? Will you listen to this message? Will you actually embrace it and say, I don't have any more time to waste? Will you open your mouth wide? Or do you even know what that looks like, right? Will you be a living testimony to the grace of God? Will you finally, once and for all, right, fulfill the purpose he has for your life? And will you take your faith to work and talk about it? There is a season for everything under the sun, and 2020 is the season of that double portion. It's time to get busy. Guys, I'm going to pause real quick because somebody is still unmuted. So would all of you please check your mute button? It looks like a little microphone, and be sure you mute yourself out. Thank you. It's a time to increase your impact. It's time to increase your influence, and it's time to increase your income. A lot of people get all ruffled up. We start talking about, maybe a double portion of finances, right? Let me tell you something. God can do whatever God wants to do, and he rained manna down from heaven to feed his people. He has the power and the might to rain down gold from heaven. He could bring, $100 bills floating into your living room today because he's God, but he doesn't work that way. He expects you to be engaged in the whole process. So, if you want that increase, if you want to increase your impact, your influence, your income, you do have something to do about it besides just praying. He always expects his people to take action. And you know what? You have a voice. And are you going to use it? Now, I know there are people out there. Every time I have a discussion like this about your purpose, your voice, what you say, I always have people pushing back saying, I don't have anything to share. He doesn't call on me like that. He's going to call on you like that. But that's so not true. He has put a message in you. There's a dream, there's a purpose, there's something within you that he wants you to do. Most people haven't found it yet. I consider it to be a blessing that in that decade of vision, God actually showed me mine, and I'm being used to show you what he wants of you too. You have a voice, even if you think it's small, if you think it's weak, if you think it's not big and meaningful, right? You still have a voice. So the question is, are you going to use it? We read in the Bible in Numbers 13, where the giants were but Joshua was leading the people to the promised land, and the people went out to scope things out. They said, oh my goodness, we're like grasshoppers compared to these guys. And they see us that way. We see us that way. What were they doing? Their eyes, again, they're the adversary, were inward. They look at the surface and saw those giants and believed that they had no hope. They thought, we're just grasshoppers. There's no way we can fight these guys. But with God, all things are possible. The enemy wants you to turn inward and say, I don't have anything to add to this life. That's what he wants of you. No purpose, no voice, no nothing. They say that statistically, less than 10% of the people, Christians in the world, actually ever share the gospel. That's pathetic. Now, this call isn't just about sharing the gospel, but it's pathetic how few people will actually speak up and share the greatest gift they ever had in their life. But, you see yourself, that way, small, insignificant, everything's bigger, everybody's got more going on. So is this the way you see yourself, as a grasshopper? Let me tell you something, guys, God gives everybody a gift. Everybody's got a purpose. The only reason you just drew that last breath is because he's not finished with you yet. And so fulfilling that purpose, if you say, I'm just like this grasshopper, I don't have anything to add. You know what you're saying? You're saying God isn't good enough. You're saying he left the throne one day and he took a nap and he forgot to give you a gift. God has a purpose for everybody. So you got to get those eyes, turned back outward and quit letting the adversary turn them inward to convince you that you don't have something to offer and you don't have anything to open your mouth wide about. So when you open your mouth wide, it can include all kinds of things, right? It could be a written word. It could be a spoken word. It could be one-on-one conversations that are actually meaningful, right, with purpose. It could mean public speaking for some of you. It could mean social media probably for all of you, or it could be all the above. Regardless of the platform or the way that you open your mouth wide, it's time to just do it, right? So it begins, with that understanding you have a purpose and acceptance that you exist only to please him. You may not see things that way, but when you do, I assure you, you'll never know more joy than when you understand you only exist to please him. And you understand that your work, the only purpose of your work is not to make money, guys. The purpose of your work is to glorify God. And that doesn't mean that you go around your office and you beat people over the head with Bibles and you're, conflict going on and like a Pharisee. That's not what that means. But your work, the only reason for it at all is to glorify God. So when you go start doing it by opening your mouth, right? When you learn to, how to speak and who to speak to, and I call that learning how to fish, right? Because you're the lure, you're the attraction, you're the light of the world. Some people learn how to fish on their own. They don't need help. They learn how to fish, they get out there and they flop around and they do it themselves. And some think they can learn without help, but they quit because they never figure it out by themselves, right? Jesus taught the disciples how to fish. They weren't born knowing how to fish. They knew how to fish in the physical sense to, get fish and eat and sell them, right? They knew that. But Jesus taught the disciples how to go out fish. And most people need to be taught. So now I see with 2020 vision, what I'm supposed to be doing with this hindsight, and why I'm even having a call like this in the first place, to help you learn to open your mouth wide, to inspire you, to encourage you, to use the unique gifts God has given to you, and to live out your purpose in life before it's too late. You probably got an email as part of this invitation saying that my biggest fear is, and I don't really have it, by the way, because I've overcome this, but it should be the biggest fear that you die without ever completing that purpose. It's not like you won't go to heaven, okay, but you won't be having the same experience the other people will that actually fulfilled their purpose. So you should just want to have this drive to want to please him, to glorify him, to fulfill the reason you exist in the first place. And you know what? We can reach the world if we learn how to fish, if we're willing to go where they are, if we have the tools we need for our success, if we learn to offer the bait that they're hungering for. Half the time, especially in business, we go about throwing bait at the wrong kind of bait at the wrong fish. But we got to learn, what are they hungry for? What is the person you just met, the person you meet online, the person that comes into your life? What are they hungry for? Everybody's hungering for something. So we need to go fish them and work on your lure, because you're the lure. So don't lose the season of double portions and learn to declare and open your mouth. So what does it really mean for you? Some of you might have your head spinning. Some of you actually got anxious inside. You're like, I don't even know. I'm not grasshopper, right? You don't want to fess up. Some of you don't know what it means. So I'm going to try to paint a little picture so you can understand the meaning of it all and how you can open your mouth. So if you don't believe you have a message worth sharing, you got to think again, because he says in Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. 1 Peter 2:9, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood. Oh, stop right there. Would you think anybody would ever think of themselves as being like a grasshopper if they actually embrace the fact that we are royal priesthood? We're royalty, right? You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. And we read in 1 Corinthians 2, but as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If we are all a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. Guys, there's no such thing as a little gift, a little purpose, okay? There's no such thing as somebody having bigger gifts. I mean, we all have our own gifts. You have your own purpose, and there's no such thing as a small one. And he said to them, go into the world and proclaim God. Listen, when you proclaim, you're not just sitting there praying. When you proclaim, you're speaking up. So proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. And then you did not choose me, but I chose you and pointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. And lastly, in Matthew 4:19, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. Guys, I think for way too long, we've kind of looked at this whole open your mouth wide thing, whether it's, specifically to your faith or to in your business and your faith, when it's all mixed together. Kind of looked at it and said, well, that's what evangelists are for. I'll write a check to the church. I'll write a check to that thing or that thing. And then you're off the hook. Listen, the language of heaven says it's the time for all of us to open our mouth wide. It doesn't say just those who are called to do it and get paid to do it. It's time for everybody to be opening your mouth in and out of your workplace, right? So you do have a unique message. You do have a unique purpose. And there's a dream message, a God-given purpose planted within each one of us. And it's that thing that we feel like we're supposed to be doing, right? It's that something that we're supposed to be sharing. And so it's time to open our mouth to do what you were born to do and to learn how to share it with the world. There's no getting around it. So you think that dream or that passion, that experience, that nagging thing within you, you think it's insignificant. And so I want to point out how significant everything is, and how something in your life is supposed to be, you're supposed to turn up the heat on that something to have a bigger message. You're looking at there, you may have seen that picture online. That's me. And I was about 4 years old in that picture. And we were someplace having fun, I guess. There's another picture on the same day with one of my sisters and my parents. And I think we were out having a cookout or doing something. I'm sure there was a lot of alcohol there, no doubt, for that season of life. Looks like a sweet time, doesn't it? I mean, I have to say so myself. If that wasn't my picture of me, I'd still say that girl looks a little sassy, but probably pretty sweet. But what you don't see is I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I had an alcoholic dad that, when he drank, he ran away from home. He just was like, he was nicknamed Houdini. And that running away didn't mean he slept it off somewhere overnight. He was gone for weeks or months or maybe a year. You never knew when Daddy was going to be there. Daddy wasn't. And then I had a mother with serious anger issues and depression issues. So when Daddy would leave, she didn't work. And when Daddy would leave, she went to bed with depression, pulled the covers over her head. That was it. And you just waited for the eviction notice. It was poverty. It was upheaval. It was tumultuous. There were sudden moves, and it wasn't like we had time to think through it or walk through it. It was like, pack your stuff, we're out of here. We lost more things than we ever owned in our lives. We had 21 moves by the time I was in 9th grade, and I went to 5 high schools in 2 years. I was molested by a family member. I have no formal education, and I was consumed with fear. Now, I don't tell you, listen, there's a journey here, okay? I'm getting to a point. I don't say this to whine. I love my family. I still miss my mom and dad. I don't harbor anything against them. It is what it is, what it is. But I'm trying to point out the picture of what you see on the surface is cute little kid, and it looks all innocent, right? There was a lot going on that absolutely fear took over my life, right? I was scared all the time. We go to this school and that school and this place and that place, and I didn't know what was coming. But, I was not rebellious necessarily, but I was in trouble often, like all the time kind of thing. But the one thing I was disciplined for more than anything else that I did was my mouth. Okay. My mouth was washed out with soap more times than I could possibly count. I was slapped in the face to tame my mouth. Things were thrown at me when I said something. See, I was quick on my feet. Okay. And I did speak. I didn't get sassy or disrespectful kind of thing, but my mouth, is what I got in trouble for. And I would hear, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Or I would hear, you're so hateful. Or you're so mean, or you're so ugly on the inside. I would hear these things. I'm not talking once or twice in my life. I'm talking about all the time, right? So there was a voice speaking up that was being tamed. In self-defense, I want you to know I learned the importance and power of words in that time. I learned to choose my words very carefully. I didn't want to get soap in my mouth, and I didn't want to get slapped in the face. I was scared, and I wanted to adhere to those things. So I learned the importance and the power of words. I learned to choose my words carefully. I learned to listen a whole lot more than I would speak, and I learned to scope things out before I opened my mouth. I learned to soften the blow. So what are we looking at there? You know, it was preparing me, guys, is what I'm getting at. I obviously grew up. I eventually ended up in corporate world. And in my 20s, guys, I was a vice president in a Fortune 500 company just outside of Washington, D.C. Let me tell you something. I was like the wonder girl. I mean, they couldn't understand how did this young woman have the words to speak, the wisdom. Well, it all came from that little girl, right? I had to learn how to scope things out. I had to learn when to open my mouth, how to learn what words to use. And so I was excelling until one day I had to go out and give a short presentation. I'd never done a public presentation. I'd, presented to maybe 10 or 12 people in a conference room, which was no problem. I don't remember how many people were there, a couple hundred probably. And I know it today, that hindsight's 2020, right? I know that I had a panic attack. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that, but I know this, the Wonder Girl, everybody thought she was sick, because I broke out in a sweat. I shook like a leaf. That fear was all right back at me. That new kid in school, that fear of the words, how they're going to react. And I completely had a meltdown. So my mentor told me, if you think you're going some bigger places, it's not going to happen unless you conquer the fear of that microphone of speaking to a group, right? And so I was so afraid. I went to Dale Carnegie. My company paid for it, which put a lot of pressure on me, by the way. I don't remember how much it was. This is like dinosaur days. I want to say it was like $5,000, but they agreed to pay so the Wonder Girl could fix that problem. But, again, that put pressure on me. I had to do well, right? So I was so afraid that I wouldn't do well that I excelled. I was scared to death. Oh, my gosh, what if I don't do well? The company's going to fire me and I make all this money. And so I excelled. Guys, somebody is not muted out. And frankly, you're disrupting the whole call. So please mute yourself out. So I excelled at it to a point where, because driven by fear, it was that little girl, right? Driven by fear, that I excelled, and they actually brought me on to teach Dale Carnegie. So I went from the scared little girl to conquering the fear, to excelling at that, to actually teaching Dale Carnegie. So it was success, and I had to stop, right? I had to overcome my fear. I had to learn it, and I had to teach it, and today I preach it. And so you see, that little girl, it all started there. That's where it all began. I went on from there to be the top in my industry in the auction world. I sold and settled over 5,000 properties. That's unheard of. We did a lot of premier properties. So I sold for a lot of the rich and famous. It was pretty cool, right? I've sold for Donald Trump. I worked with him. I worked with Tiger Woods. I worked with Sugar Ray Leonard. I worked with Mary Kay. I worked with Barbara Mandrell. I worked with Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Robert and Sheila Johnson, the founders of BET Network, the countless senators and nameless affluent people. I literally have made millions in my career, and I loved every single minute of it. I loved it, and I was good at it, right? And then everything was going along, coasting along. I'm doing very well. And one moment in time, just one moment in time, one bad decision. Now, I'm not talking about I didn't get caught up when the market fell, okay? I'm not talking about I made a bad investment. I'm talking about I made a decision that altered the course of my entire life, and everything was shattered into pieces. Everything. It literally happened like overnight. You talk about fear. The fear that little girl had was now on steroids. Everything I had worked for, I would literally had no money. I had no credit. I had problems coming at me left and right that I didn't even know were coming. And I'm happy to share later on all the details. This is not the time to go into it. It takes a long time. But everything was shattered and upside down. Everything I worked for, I was paralyzed with fear, paralyzed. It was like going right back to be that little girl. And you know what? I went into a place of despair. And I'm telling you, it was a dark, dark place, okay? I'm sure I was clinically depressed. But nobody told me I was, right? I mean, I would get up and function, still had kids at home, and I would go about, a little bit, getting dressed, getting makeup on, driving them here, driving them there. I would go to my office, and I couldn't get a rational thought for nothing. If I hadn't built such a big business where people were coming back to me, referrals kind of things, right? I would have starved to death. I want you to know too, I'm going to stop right there and tell you, when you guys read about, or maybe you've been to the farm here in Virginia, one of the things that makes it so special is God protected it. I can't figure out. You hear my story and you might wonder, well, how's she have that farm? I don't know. God, I have no idea. God just put this supernatural protection around the farm. And that's one of the things that why it means so much to me. I saw his hand, but I was in this fit of despair. Okay. I was not functioning. I'm getting to a point, by the way, it's not a pity party. I was not functioning. I didn't know which way to turn. I have never in my life, just everything taken from me so fast. And it looked like I was a grasshopper and everything else was a giant. I couldn't imagine I would have enough years to live in my life to turn it around. And I remember one day, I was just done. I really wasn't asking God for anything, but I remember just physically crumbling to the ground and saying, God, I can't take another breath. I can't take another step. I was done, guys. Maybe you've been there in your life, right? I'm done. This is rock bottom. I didn't have thoughts of killing myself, but I did not want to live. I didn't want to live anymore. It was done for me, right? But in that moment, and I don't want you to think I'm a lunatic. It's not like I hear God's voice all the time, but I've heard his voice a few times. And in this journey, I heard it twice. And that as I was in a puddle on the floor, you know, he spoke to my soul and said, I am the Lord your God, and I'll deliver you. But you can't do any more about your circumstances than you can hold back the waves of the sea. And you know what? There was something, I almost laughed because I thought, how ridiculous that I'm trying to hold back the waves of the sea. I can't hold back the waves of the sea. And at that moment, I can't say I was restored completely, but I had hope. I knew God wasn't going to leave me or forsake me. I knew he was going to see me through this mess. I didn't know what was at the end of that rainbow, but I knew he loved me enough to speak to my soul while I was in a puddle on the floor and I didn't even want to live anymore. He loved me that much. So I had hope, right? I still hadn't figured out how to patch anything together, but that's what the voice of God looks like and feels like. So I knew I had to get up and I had to go on. And, you know, as I went on, I wasn't happy in my work. And I didn't know what I was going to do when I grew up, right? I wasn't happy. You know, the economy by then, it did tank, and the auction business changed dramatically. Instead of going in and selling premier things and being the hero because the prices were great, you know, I went to this world where it was bankruptcies and foreclosures and short sales and heartbroken people. Nothing would have made them happy. And my heart broke for them, and my heart wasn't strong enough to break for them, right? So I remember, you know, calling out to God, say, God, you've been so good to me. I've loved this world, this auction world for 18 years. I've loved it. And Lord, I just can't stand it anymore. You know, just can you either rekindle my passion for what I was doing, or will you give me something else? And as clear as you can hear my voice now, I heard him say, that voice belongs to me. Use it to my glory. And so, guys, I knew at that moment, all those pieces came together. That little girl that was out there, you know, getting slapped in the face and soap in the mouth, and such an emphasis on words, right? I knew that it all began then. And when I went to that journey, as I went to Dale Carnegie, I'm like, cool, this is awesome. You know, I didn't give credit to God. I was just like, I was almost like we're a partnership. He does his part, I do my part, right? I got into the auction business where, of course, my voice was used, and I opened an auction school, and I was teaching auction classes, doing all stuff, you know, but I still didn't correlate that everything about me, that's the gift God gave to me. See, that's the purpose for me. And so he started working on it when I was a little girl. You might have pain, you might have suffering, you might have a testimony to share. Whatever your pain and your problems have been, that's probably what God wants to use in your life to speak up to help somebody else. But whatever it is, you see from what I do today, if you're on this call, you know what I do today. You see that God can use all that, and you can open your mouth wide, and you can do it in the workplace. It's all one thing, guys. So that voice, my voice, belongs to him. And from that moment forward, I use it in my work to glorify him. And that's why you hear messages like that from me. So it all started inside that little girl. That pain was my gain. And the journey is my testimony. I don't regret 1 second of it, right? Because I like where God has me. That voice was his all along. He just started nurturing it and tweaking it and refining it way back when I was a sassy little thing, right? And he prepared me for such a time as this. So today, I help others, and I help them find their purpose, and I help them fine tune their influence, and I help them define the impact that they can have in life. I teach them how to fish, and then I send them out to fish, right? And I teach them how to open their mouths wide with their purpose and their message, which isn't mine. You have your own thing going on, right? And it all equates to success, by the way, in every area of life, of fuller, more meaningful life with your relationships, a fuller, more meaning walk of your faith, and a fuller, more meaningful business. It all works together, guys. It's all the same techniques, if you will, with just a different spin for whatever area of your life. So we could sit there. I could easily have a pity party, whining and moaning all the days of my life about a childhood that was so tumultuous and, all that stuff. But that would be looking inward, wouldn't it? That's when the enemy turns everything inward, and you see yourself as that crippled little girl, or you see yourself as a grasshopper. You focus on your past, your pain, and your problems. And God has such a big purpose for you, everything moving forward, and to get you to open your mouth wide. I take courses too. I learn from the masters, right? And I took a course. You're probably familiar with Bruce Wilkinson. He's the author of the bestseller, The Prayer of Jabez. Fabulous. If you don't have it, you should get it. You should read it often. And then he wrote a book, The Dream Giver, and he developed a course called Dream Again. And I took that course. Now, when I took the course, I really, frankly, didn't have me in mind. I was kind of on this journey a little bit, but I really wanted to understand, how can I help other people start to dream again? I was working with lots of people, still have people in my life that got crushed in the economy, got divorced, lost their house, lost their job. And you know what? They aren't dreaming anymore, right? So I really wanted to learn about that. And it was amazing for my own life. And I shared it with others, of course, right? But it was interesting. He was talking about those things that, kind of, when you talk about them, you get excited, and we seem to compartmentalize life, where we'll say, well, this is what I do for my work, but, oh, I really like to do this on the side. I really like to do this. I might do this to make money, but this is what I really love to do. And you know what, guys, I hear it all the time. Doing the work that I'm doing, I hear people say, oh, I've always wanted to write a book. Well, you're not writing a book, right? If you're supposed to write a book, if you've got that thing inside of you that nags you, you're supposed to be doing it, whatever it is. So he was going over all this. It was a fascinating journey to learn from him. He's an amazing man of God and a great teacher. But he was telling this story about, he went to a mega church, I believe it was in Georgia, and at this mega church, after this training, the Dream Again course, this woman came up to him and she said, wow, that was so powerful. I really enjoyed it, but it's not for me, but I enjoyed it. I mean, I don't work. I don't need to work. I've been a housewife and a mom, and I don't need to do all those things. But if I did, what you said made a lot of sense. And so he starts talking to her, and he wants to find out, well, what do you like to do? What are you passionate about? What really makes you happy when you do it? And she said, well, it's nothing meaningful. I just like to, we have a nursing home close by to where we live. And I love tea parties. And I've got these great china, great teacups and everything. So once a month I go to the nursing home and I have a tea party for the elderly women in the nursing home. And the more he talked to her, the more he could see this light. She lit up. She just lit up, talking about these tea parties and how she liked to make the elderly women feel good. Well, the moral of the story is that she went on to do a tea party. She said, wait a minute, well, you're right. Why couldn't I do more tea parties? Why couldn't I go over to another nursing home and do a tea party? And another nursing home. So she started building this. Before you know it, other women said they wanted to go do the same thing. But here's the most important part. As she went forth with this dream, her purpose, if you will, meeting with these women, loving them, treating them with dignity, giving them something to look forward to. You know what she did? She shared a little bit of the gospel. And one by one, the numbers I don't recall now, but women in their 70s, 80s, 90s, who had either never heard the gospel or just never made a profession of faith, we're now making them all over a little tea party. So you see, there's nothing insignificant. If it's something inside you that burns and you want to do it, then you need to do it. If it's write a book, you do it. If it's work with foster kids, you do it, right? Whatever it is, it's not there by accident. God used a woman who loved to pull out fine china and treat the elderly with dignity, and he turned it into open your mouth wide kind of environment, to glorify him. You guys probably all familiar with Chris Gardner. Love that last name, right? And some of you went to a global convention last year, saw him speak. I've seen him speak. He's powerful. And, you know, The Pursuit of Happiness is an amazing movie. What a life he has. But it's easy to look on the surface and say, well, you know, yeah, I mean, he went to Wall Street, he got rich. I mean, you know, and just kind of roll your eyes at his success story when you see it in the movie, right? But the bottom line is, you know, when he got through his journey, he talks about how he knew he didn't want to stay broke. He knew he didn't want to stay homeless. He loved that little boy. The little boy's mom had walked out, so he's a single dad. He becomes homeless. He didn't want it to stay that way, right? But he didn't really know what he's going to do to get out of that mess until he walked in on the trading floor on Wall Street, and he said something inside of him just exploded with excitement. Nothing would have stopped him. Right? That's what God had for him. But you know what? It wasn't so to make him a rich man. It wasn't just to get him off the streets. Today, you know, of course, he says, I owe the entire journey to God. But today, you know what Chris Gardner does? He's an advocate for homeless people. He could so easily say, like so many of us have said, well, get a job. Hey, I work. You can work. Get off the streets or whatever. Judging the people. No. God melted his heart. See, all along, God knew that he would use Chris Gardner to go out there and defend the hungry people. What does the word say? I was hungry and you fed me. And so he goes out and does the work of the Lord, all because he was homeless and a single father and walked on Wall Street, exploded with excitement, and God used him. Now, he worked really, really hard, don't get me wrong. But when you know that when you chase what you're passionate about, it doesn't seem like work anymore. And so that's the story of Chris Gardner. What separates him from me or him from you? Nothing. Is something within you. He ran with what ignited within his soul, and that's what you got to do too. We're all familiar with Chick-fil-A. You know, Chick-fil-A, gosh, you know, it was 1982. The economy was horrible. In that year, McDonald's came out. They've always done burgers. Now they were adding chicken into the game. Chick-fil-A was building a 6,000 square foot headquarter building in Atlanta, and things were really, really not good. And so they went on a retreat, a brainstorming retreat. And the first day they were talking practical things, what they might do. On the second day, they revisited their mission statement. And their mission statement is to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that is entrusted to us, to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. Listen, Chick-fil-A is not about chicken, and Chick-fil-A is not about money. Chick-fil-A is the means that God uses, a vehicle, if you will, to get his work done. And they're very good at getting that done. You know, I went through a Chick-fil-A in town here one day last year, and I was just on the run. I was going through the drive-thru. I wanted a cup of coffee. Okay, I'll confess, I needed a cup of coffee, and I wanted to give my money to them. And so I have this habit of, you know, if it's winter time, it's usually a no-brainer. But anyway, if I think the coffee's not a good time of day to get fresh coffee, I'll say, you do happen to have any fresh coffee? And of course they always, you know, offer to make a pot. So that's what happened. And I went up and paid. She asked me to pull forward a little bit and wait for my cup of coffee. And out came the coffee a few minutes later. And it was actually the owner that brought me the coffee. And he's apologizing. I'm so sorry you had to wait. And I said, oh, what are you, nuts? I'm for a fresh cup of coffee. I'll wait. And he said, no, you don't understand. I'm capable of more, better than that. Can you imagine that heart? No, they're about being a good witness, a good testimony. Don't have anything to do with chicken. But this is a real indicator of how serious they are about spreading the good news, opening their mouth wide, right? If you want a Chick-fil-A franchise, it only costs $10,000. And you know what? They pay for the startup costs, including the real estate, the construction, and the restaurant equipment. You know who else does that? Nobody. I think it's like $400,000 or something for McDonald's franchise. Doesn't include any of that. You go get they have to approve your site and you got to go get it and you got to pay for it. No, this is how serious they are about doing the work of the Lord in the workplace. And they don't come in and beat you over the head with a Bible, do they? But they glorify God in all that they do. And from that moment forward, there is no looking back. When they said, let's revisit our mission statement. What are we all about? Is it, you know, we're getting lost here. They refocused, and everything else is history. Well, of course, we see it with Mrs. Fields. I mean, who in the world, you know, when somebody says, hey, I make great cookies, I want to build a business. I'm sure she was laughed everywhere, you know, but she knew she was supposed to be baking those cookies. And if she would bake those cookies and just not stop, she could build a business, and she did. But what I just want to point out with her is she said she started waking up every morning and telling herself somewhere there's a person who'll say yes to, you know, she was looking for a loan to start her business. As silly as it might sound, this woman was intended to bake cookies and make a business out of it. So guys, nothing's trivial. You, on the surface, you look at it, you look inward and you say, all I know is cookies. But there's nothing superficial, nothing small for God. Maybe it's humor. It's all, God uses everything, right? There are all kinds of Christian comedians. I personally like Jeff Allen because he has a story. He's a recovering alcoholic, and he tells jokes about that actually to soften the blow for lots of families. He became a Christian, of course, and he's cleaned up his material. He's a really good comedian. Who would ever say, well, God gave the ability to have a sense of humor in that person, and he's supposed to go out in the world and open his mouth wide and make a living from it? Who would ever think that? But that's the way God works. See, nothing's by accident, and he's supposed to be in everything we do. And if we'll just follow that burn, I'm sure that Jeff Allen, like every other comedian I ever met, went through their whole life just loving to make people laugh. You know, I actually looked it up. I actually looked it up, and you think about it. Somebody's not good. Hold on, I've got to open the screen, guys. The recording is now officially messed up, but I'll do it again. So anyway, so they wake up and think, well, I love making people laugh, and you might think that's too silly. That doesn't happen. But I did look it up, and I thought, oh, we know Jesus laughed, okay? I was looking for scriptures. When did he laugh? Well, we know that the first miracle he ever performed, he was at a wedding. And I think weddings were like 3 days long back then, and they were flowing with wine. You can't tell me that they sat around drinking wine. Nobody was happy, including Jesus. And isn't it interesting that the first miracle he performed would be at a festive, party like that. And the first miracle he performed he didn't ask to be performed by God. It was by his mom, right? How amazing in that? No, they said nothing's more beautiful in life than to eat, drink, and be merry. So yeah, God uses comedians, absolutely. And he can use you too. Then I pulled out somebody that's got an online presence. You probably don't even know who this woman is, but she has a site called Our Half Acre Homestead, and she's gotten real good at canning and cooking and gardening and baking and all this stuff. You can see this is not intended to be an insult to her in any way whatsoever. You can see she's a plain woman, right? This is not a fake picture. She's a plain woman. She's got a little weight on her. She's got a lot of tattoos on her. And she's got a brand that won't stop. She got 79,000 subscribers to her YouTube channel, all about how to homestead and become self-sufficient. Guys, God uses her that way. She had a burn to tell other people about what she knew. You might have a burn to tell people what you know. Maybe it's real estate. Maybe it's golf. Maybe it's recovering from a sickness, whatever it is. But she had a burn to do that. And you know what? It blew up. She went viral. 79,000 subscribers are following her. That's her brand. That's what God has her do, right? And last but not least, there's a pastor out of Dallas, actually. His name is Don Clowers, and Don Clowers is in his 70s, and he wasn't finished yet. Wasn't pastoring a church, but he had this online audience, kind of like a not even really church, kind of a semi-Bible study kind of thing. And he decided to open his mouth wide. He decided to figure out a way to reach the world, if you will, with this little online class that he was doing. And almost overnight, what did he do? He went from 20 people to over 200,000 people a week. And it all started by him writing that book to build his brand. You see what I'm getting at? There's something you've got within you that needs to be released. It needs to be, you open your mouth wide, and then you need to tell the world you got it. Back in the day, I've transitioned, as you guys know, in a lot of my business. I first got into a business, not realizing what God had for me in the business, right? But I was in it doing what I consider to be silly stuff. It wasn't working for me. Okay. It's not what God wanted me to do, but I know how to brand myself. I just hadn't done it in the business that I'm in now. Right. But in the old days, I knew how to do it. In the old days, when I went from defense industry, corporate that I was talking to you about, and I went over to the auction, I wasn't a generational auctioneer. I didn't know anything. I came in, there weren't many women in the field. I didn't know, I wanted to make my mark, right? I knew how the importance of influence, and I knew I had to build that up somehow. We weren't using the internet back then, right? So I started writing. Remember, God gave me words, right? It started with that little girl. So I called, it was actually called Antique Weekly at the time. And I called them and said, hey, I want to write a Q&A, kind of like an Ann Landers or Dear Abby for auctions, a little Q&A auction column. And they said, well, we don't have that in our budget. And I said, oh, I don't want any money. I just want to do it. So I sent them a couple samples. I wrote that free article, if you will. For a couple of years, I became known as the expert there. Wow, she's got all the answers for auction and antiques and all this stuff, right? Wasn't even in real estate yet. But then I got into real estate, and what I do, I started writing articles here and there, press releases, that would be put into realtor magazines. I was working with the largest independent broker in the nation at the time, right? So I'm writing articles there, and I'm writing articles for the auctioneer. I'm getting my name out there. I'm branding myself for nothing, right? For nothing. But you know what happened? After, they see my name out there, they see what I'm doing, you know what they wanted me to do? They wanted me to come speak. They wanted me to share with them what I had. So I knew how to brand myself there. I just wasn't branding myself here. And then charity auctions, I started volunteering for that. And I would go anywhere. I did some great charity auctions, being close to DC. I did some, political fundraiser auctions. I did auctions for Sidwell Friends, which is the school where the president's kids go, right? I went to Palm Beach, Florida. They flew me down there to do an auction there I'm drawing a blank here at the name of the school, but it was a school where the Trump kids went, and a lot of high profile people in that area, their kids went there. I volunteered for everything. And then eventually with some of them, I didn't want to give up. Like, I didn't want to give up the political fundraisers. I didn't want to give up the high profile stuff. But for everybody else, I'd say, I'm sorry, I can't do volunteer work anymore. What did they do? They didn't want to lose me. So it started paying me very well just to do a charity auction, which is so unconventional. I was branding myself, is my point. Branding myself, doing something to get out there so I would be considered to be the expert in my field. And it all paid off for me. So I went, again, because I was using what God already gave me, right? And I go into this field and I do the things I just showed you, and I became an expert, and I started getting auctions left and right, 5,000 of them in my career there. So I knew how to brand. I came here and I quit branding. I lost my mind. Okay, it's a confession. I lost my mind. And then I, eventually got to the place where I said, wait a minute, what am I doing? I knew what I need to do. I need to get out there and brand me. Guys, what you may or may not understand is when you get out, when you're branding yourself or when you're building a business, the bottom line is you should be branding you, not a product or a service. You should be branding you. And I was, out there branding a product. I mean, a name of a company and a product. That was silly. So one of the first things I did is I started speaking. Of course, I volunteer within our community, no problem, Then I started speaking outside in groups. I wrote this book. When you maybe think about writing a book, guys, don't be intimidated. This book is only like 50 pages long. It's kind of ridiculous to call it. You should call it a pamphlet. But in the virtual world with ebooks and Amazon and things like that, it's still a book. And, with a little bit of marketing know-how, I, did my part and made it to #1 on Amazon. It's unbelievable, right? But that branded me. So now, even though it's just a tiny little pamphlet book with my name on it, because it went to #1, you think that's not opening doors? I've branded myself as an expert. Am I an expert? No, I'm not the expert really, but I'm branding myself as the expert. And that's all that ever really matters. And then of course it went into course development, where I'm out here trying to help you guys, right? To expand to enlarge your territory, to start opening your mouth wide. I've got a course that's coming out on how to do Facebook advertising. Why? Well, because I feel sorry for people spending a fortune, to get somebody else to do it, and they don't know what they're doing. So, it's just something I want to do to help. I've got all kinds of Bible study things going that you may not be on the list to receive. And frankly, I will be starting an online church soon. I'm branding, right? And there's a technique to it. It's not rocket science, but if you want to open your mouth wide, if you really want to have that kind of impact in life before you die, you need to consider what it looks like to brand so that you can reach a bigger audience. So again, no matter what you're selling, it doesn't matter if you're selling yourself, if you're looking for love, or maybe you want friendships, a bigger world, if you're looking for faith, as you go out and share the good news, or you're looking to build your business, it doesn't really matter. There's two things that you will need that will change the way you work for forever and ever. Amen. #1 is to remember that people do not buy based on logic ever. They buy based on emotion. So quit pushing a logical trigger. They don't buy that way. And #2, which would probably be #1, people never buy your products or services. They buy you. You're what they buy. And so once they like what you stand for, who you are, what your beliefs are, whatever, they build a trust factor, whatever, then you know what? Then they'll buy what you got. But they never buy into your product or service. So why in the world Are you branding only your product and service when that's not really what they buy in the first place? You need to brand yourself and build a bigger audience so that you can open your mouth wide to more people. But the bottom line is this, guys, if you're serious about doing that, whatever that is, whether you're like that homestead woman, you just, have some practical things that you want to teach. Maybe you love golf, you want to teach that. Maybe you've survived a storm, you want to talk about that. Doesn't really matter. You can't go about, in today's world, we can't use the tools of yesterday when we got a super highway out there. Whether you like it or not, that's where the world is doing business. That's where friendships are made. I don't like it either, okay? But that's what we've got. But the good news is that when we open our mouth wide and we've got a meaningful message behind what we do, wow, there's no end to the impact that we can have all across the world. But you simply can't use the old way of doing it. I couldn't start today in the auction business and accomplish what I did because things are different today. We'd have to use the internet. I'd have to be using social media. Everything would be different than it is, right? And so you got to get yourself out of the last century and start looking at modern day tools. And you know what? You don't have to be intimidated by them. So really it is breaking it down into bite-sized pieces and understanding what it takes. That woman, the homestead woman with 79,000 followers, all she does is a YouTube channel and Twitter. And you know what? Don't get intimidated by that either. Nobody's saying you got to do a video. Maybe you're not intended to do a video, but that's what she did. And so we can't use the old tools in the day, the new age, if you will. We're on the super highway, like it or not, so you got to put your seatbelt on and use the bigger tools. Number one, no matter what you do out there for your business, no matter what your message is, no matter what your business card says, the number one thing you need a personal website. Now, in real estate, we get used to template websites, if you will, that maybe a broker has a website and it houses our listings, whatever. But if you're in real estate and you're worth a nickel, you're out there doing your own marketing. Okay, you're not counting on that website. But for a lot of people on this call, you have a product and you're counting on somebody else's website. You may have a website, it may even have your name on it, but rest assured, it is not your personal website. It's just a company template website that gets your name put on it. So you need a personal website. If you want to brand yourself, you want to reach the world, if you want to open your mouth wide and reach more people on that super highway, number one thing you need is a personal website. And then you need to automate all the marketing. And people get all muddled up, but we all know that the fortune's in the follow-up. And we also know that follow-up is what people stink at, right? We use words like funnels, like a click funnel. You're all part of a click funnel when you came into this call. But we use, the click funnel, all a click funnel is an automated follow-up system. And, back in the old days, it was dial for dollars, right? Call them, send them a postcard, whatever it was in the dinosaur days. Today's, it's click funnels. And, once you understand what things really are without that geek language behind them, you understand that not only is it not as complicated as you thought, but you can automate your entire life. And that's what made my business a lot easier, and my ministry, by the way, is when I automated, got everything under one roof once and for all. I'm not chasing 10 pieces of the pie. I've got everything under one roof. So you can automate your marketing, build your brand, and that way you can open your mouth even wider to share your message. So if you want to do this, if this message is, touched you spiritually, and you understand that your work is to glorify God, you want to do something about it, first you have to decide. You have to make a decision whether or not you're going to participate in opening your mouth wide. Listen, I'm not going to hold you accountable. I'm only telling you that the language of heaven says now's the time to do it, right? And then you have to define your purpose, your message, you may be sitting there saying, I don't even know. I mean, Lynn's got this story. Well, my story is not your story. Your story is not my story, but you got one, okay? There's something. You got to, put your finger on it and define what is that something that excites you. Whatever that something is like that, you're intended to do it. Then you need to learn. You need to learn how to fish. I'm supposed to open my mouth wide. What does that mean? When I go to the grocery store, I talk to somebody, and, well, that's a good thing. But boy, do we have the potential. You have the potential to reach so many people if you would open your mouth wide with those tools, right? So you need to learn how to fish. The power of influence is that key to success, is getting people to listen to you by having something worthwhile listening to about, or your brand, right? So you need to box your brand up. You kind of package yourself all up. What do I stand for? Who am I? What will draw people into my life? That's what they're drawn by, who you are and what you stand for. So you start boxing that brand up so that it's packaged up and appealing, right? That lure is really shiny. And then you promote. So you put your seatbelt on again and you hit that super highway. You can build a business without ever doing that, right? But you won't reach the world unless you do it. And the business, it's like a website has replaced yellow pages. Remember yellow pages, right? And we've got, cell phones that replaced office phones. You can't get anybody on a line. Voicemail replaced human beings. So like it or not, if you're going to succeed, whether you want to build that big global business or you just want a neighborhood shop, like it or not, you still have to, get out there on the internet. On the internet today, if I had a brick and mortar anything, I'd be doing Facebook ads geographically in that area, get people into that store, whatever it is, right? Because that's where people are. Like it or not, that's the way the world is rolling today. So you decide, you define, you learn, you brand, and then you promote. It sounds like an awful lot, but let me tell you something, it's worth it, right? It's very rewarding. And guys, it's time. Now, there's, Lynn can pitch on a lot of things. I would love to get each one of you and help you get there. That's my passion, right? But no matter what, there's no getting around the fact that it's time. It's time to do something. It's the time, for the year of that the decade actually of that open your mouth wide and speak. And 2020 is that time for the double portion. So, bottom line is, are you going to partake in it? Because if you don't change something, you can read the Bible and you'll see everything that you need to do. But, we kind of live like that Einstein definition, right? We live each year like slugs and we say, oh, woe is me. It's got to be better next year. Well, nothing going to be different or better this year unless you do something. So it's time. There's no way getting around it. I'm hoping and praying actually that the whole meaning of the double portion year of 2020 and the time for you opening your mouth wide is going to stir something up within you that you have never had stirred before, and that you're going to get out there and send a message that the world needs to hear. But you know what? It's interesting. Because I actually taught this on a call the other day, and it was inspired by my granddaughter. My son has taught her everything. It's like ready, set, go. When they get in the car, ready, set, go. Everything's ready, set, go. But really, when you think about the way God rolls like go, set, ready. And people sitting there, ready, set, go. Okay, God, I'm ready. Whenever you set everything in place, and you send me written instructions, and you give me a lifetime guarantee and a GPS system, then I'll go. Everybody's sitting back waiting for God to do something. But the bottom line is you got something stir within you. God expects you to go. That's what faith looks like when you actually go. You think Moses had any kind of written guarantee? Man was in his 80s, okay? And he tried, didn't he? Moses said, you got the wrong guy, man. I can't even speak. So God took care of that, right? He's not going to sit there and hold your hand and give you written instructions and a GPS and a lifetime guarantee. He wants to see your faith. He wants to see you go. And he knows he's already given you everything you need. And when you're willing to go, you know what he'll do? He'll set your path straight. You won't have to worry about it because you're going to glorify him, and you're going because you trust him and you love him and you want to please him. When you go like that, trust me when I tell you, he'll set your path straight. And if you happen to go off path, he'll close doors faster than you can ever imagine. And so if you go and he sets your path straight, you can rest assured he will ready you for that journey. It's an amazing journey, but you got to get over that ready, set, go. Quit thinking like a child and get over here on the right side and say, I'm going, God, I'm going. I know where you want me to go. You don't have all the answers. You're never going to have all the answers. Not in your life, not in your faith, and not in your business. But when it comes to God, what he's looking for is those willing people, the people that have the faith to dig deep, to say, okay, God, I'm going. And he will do all the rest of the work. So you need to start looking at your life in the right way. You're not a grasshopper, and you need to get your eyes turned back outward. If you're saying, I'm too small, I'm too insignificant, I can't speak, I don't know what to say, get your eyes pointed outward, because God knows everything you need to do what he created you to do. You just got to be willing to go, set, ready. And so, guys, will you go it alone? Will you do any of this stuff? Maybe you will. Maybe you'll jump into the deep end of the pool and hope for the best. Maybe you'll be able to get there on your own, and I hope you do. Most people don't. I needed a lot of help to get where I am, and I went through a lot of hell prolonging my journey, right? But when you see how it's painted out there through the language of heaven, you see what God expects of you through his word, and you go set ready. You got to decide, am I going to jump into deep in the pool? And am I going to do it by myself, or am I going to take some swimming lessons first? That's entirely up to you. Many of us go through life, and I was guilty of this in my past, where, I was like, well, I can figure it out, and we end up wasting time. There is no more time to waste. Okay. It's now. And wasting money trying to, like I was doing, piecemealing this and that and the other thing, all over the place, spending so much more than I had to. So you can get through on your own, and chances are you probably won't, but you might eventually. Some people do, most people don't. You can get through on your own, or you can lock arms with somebody that'll take you there. And this is not, you can hang up, say whatever you want to say, call it a commercial, whatever. I'm just sharing you what God has me doing, okay? And more than anything else, I'm in marketplace ministry right now. I am locking arms with people, and it's not just people in this industry. I've got people from all kinds of industries right now. I'm locking arms with them because they want to live a life that is larger than life. And they understand that they're trying to understand their purpose, and what do I do with it, and how do I turn that into a brand? And so you can lock arms with somebody else who's already been there and done that. It's your call. I don't know if any other course out there that would help you do this, but you know what? Go look. If you don't think you want to jump into the deep end of the pool, and you don't think this is your cup of tea, maybe I got too much Jesus going on for you. Whatever it is, go find some help and get there. The point is not to try to hog tie you to do something with me. The point is to try to inspire you to do something, to receive your double portion this year, and to open your mouth wide moving forward. So you guys, that's my message for you. I'm ready to walk with you. I just want you to know that, time waits for nobody, and none of us getting any younger. I've had so many people comment, even my family saying, wow, Mom, you're like on fire. I am on fire because I finally got it. Last decade, I got it. And God prepared me from that time I was a little girl to such a time as this. He prepared me for what he wants me to do. I'm very excited to do what I'm doing. I'm very excited to watch lives change. And I'm very excited to open my mouth wide. Sometimes it's spoken word. Sometimes it's a written word. Sometimes it's one-on-one. And sometimes it's with a microphone. But I'm doing what he's called me to do. So time's going to wait for nobody. So guys, I hope you don't let time slip by. I hope you see it for what it really is. And I hope you get on fire like I'm on fire. It was contagious. But nonetheless, I'm going to just be praying for you that this message has touched you spiritually, that you see the spiritual significance of the time that we're in right now. And no generation ever knows. Okay, I don't have all the answers, but I got to tell you, I'm not a Bible scholar, but I'm pretty well versed with the Bible. And we can't guess the time of his return. But there's no reason that you would not think it's pretty soon. Well, maybe it's in my lifetime, maybe it's beyond. But guys, there's no more time, okay? It's time to do something. It's time to open your mouth wide and to do what you were born to do.